The massive steel doors of the Galactic Colonial Assessment Center hissed open, revealing a chamber that could have swallowed 3 football stadiums. Minji's worn boots clicked against the polished floor as she walked toward the center platform, her heart hammering against ribs. Above her, holographic displays showed rotating images of distant worlds, lush green planets, crystal cities floating in purple skies, and space stations that looked like glittering jewels against the cosmic void. The alien council sat in a semicircle of floating chairs, each member representing a different corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrians, with their blue crystalline skin, caught the light like living diamonds. The tall, gray-skinned Alterians moved with mechanical precision. Their red eyes scanning data streams that flickered in the air. At the center sat the High Arbiter, a creature that looked like a cross between an octopus and a tree, its tentacles dancing as it processed information from dozens of floating screens. Human designation Minji Park. The High Arbiter's voice echoed through translator devices, sounding like wind through metal pipes. You seek assignment to Kepler Station, one of our most prestigious colonial outposts. Minji straightened her shoulders. Yes, honored council. I've completed all required training modules and scored in the top percentile on survival assessments. A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the alien assembly. One of the Zephyrians leaned forward, its crystalline features catching the chamber's blue light. Your species has such amusing confidence. Tell us, human, what makes you believe you're suitable for a position that requires genetic superiority? My test scores speak for themselves, Minji replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. I've mastered 17 different atmospheric adaptation, POTOCOLS. I can survive in temperatures ranging from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius. My immune system has been enhanced to handle 37 known alien pathogens. The Alterian representative's red eyes flashed brighter. Genetic adaptation through technology is not true evolution. Your Earth-born DNA carries the weakness of a single world. Kepler Station demands beings who have evolved across multiple star systems. High above in the observation galleries, hundreds of beings watched the proceedings. Some were there for entertainment, others for business, in the most exclusive booth. Separated by shimmering force fields and tinted plasma glass, Jin Wukim sat in shadows. His fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair as he watched the human woman on the platform below. Unlike the alien surrounding him, Jinwu looked entirely human, which was exactly what made him so dangerous in galactic politics. Few knew that the quiet man in the expensive suit controlled mining operations on 47 worlds and had enough wealth to buy small star systems. Even fewer knew why he'd chosen to watch this particular rejection ceremony. Your application is denied, the High Arbiter announced, its tentacles curling with what looked like satisfaction. Earth humans lack the genetic diversity necessary for advanced colonial work. We suggest you consider positions in asteroid mining or atmospheric processing. What more suited to your limitations? The words hit Minji like physical blows. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she raised her chin and looked directly at the High Arbiter. With respect, honored council, I believe you're making a mistake. Humans have something your genetically perfect species lack. The chamber fell silent. Several aliens leaned forward, their various sensory organs focusing on the small human who dared to challenge their judgment. And what might that be? The Zephyrian asked, its voice dripping with crystalline disdain. Stubbornness. Minji's voice carried clearly through the vast space. When your perfect genetics fail. When your evolved immune systems encounter something new. When your advanced technology breaks down. Humans adapt. We survive. We find a way. The Alterian's mechanical laugh echoed through the chamber. Primitive survival instincts are hardly qualifications for a colonial leadership. Maybe not, Minji said, her hands clenched at her sides. But they're the reason humans went from a single world to establishing colonies in 17-star systems in less than 2 centuries. How long did it take your species to spread beyond your home worlds? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their floating chairs. The truth was that most galactic species had taken millennia to achieve what humans had done in decades. In his private booth, Jinwoo smiled for the first time in months. He pressed a button on his chair's armrest, and his assistant, a efficient-looking woman named Soyoung, appeared beside him. "Sir," she whispered. "The human woman on the platform," Jinwoo said without taking his eyes off Minji. "I want a full background check within the hour, and prepare the Starbreaker for immediate departure. Are we making another acquisition, sir?" Jinwoo watched as security drones began escorting Minji toward the exit. Her head still held her despite the humiliation. Something like that. But this time, "I think we might be acquiring something truly valuable," as the chamber doors closed behind Minji's retreating figure. Jinwoo was already planning his next move. The galaxy was about to learn what he'd discovered years ago, that sometimes the most dangerous beings were the ones everyone else had underestimated. The orbital shuttle's engines hummed beneath Minji's feet as she stared out the viewport at the sprawling space station below. New Haven Station looked like a giant metal flower floating in the void, its petals made of docking bays and commercial districts. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like busy insects, sleek Andromedan cruisers, bulky Terran cargo haulers, and strange alien vessels that defied human understanding of physics. Minji clutched her ejection letter, the holographic text still glowing with the Council's dismissive words. 3 days had passed since her humiliation, and she'd spent them applying for any job that would get her off this station: asteroid mining, atmospheric processing, even cleaning duties on deep space freighters. Anything was better than returning to Earth with her tail between her legs. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and passengers began filing toward the exit. Minji was gathering her small bag when a woman in an expensive business suit approached her. "Miss Park." The woman's accent was crisp, professional. "My name is Song. My employer would like to speak with you." Minji frowned. "About what?" "I don't have any pending applications with major corporations." He witnessed your performance at the Colonial Assessment Center. He was quite impressed. Before Minji could ask more questions, Seong was already walking toward a private docking tube marked with security barriers and armed guards. The guards were human, which was unusual. Most stations used alien security forces or mechanical units. The private transport they boarded was unlike anything Minji had ever seen. The interior was all smooth curves and soft lighting, with seats that adjusted automatically to her body. Through the transparent walls, she could see they were heading toward the station's luxury district, where only the wealthiest beings in the galaxy could afford to live. "Who exactly is your employer?" Minji asked as they glided silently through traffic lanes filled with faster-than-light courier ships and diplomatic vessels. "Someone who recognizes potential when he sees it," Seong replied, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "Someone who believes the Colonial Council need a serious error in judgment." They docked at a private platform high above the station's main levels. Here, the artificial gravity was lighter, and the viewports showed nothing but stars and the distant glow of nebulae. Song led Minji through corridors lined with real wood, actual trees from Earth, worth more than most people's entire life savings. The office they entered was circular, with floor-to-ceiling windows that provided a 360-degree view of space. A man sat behind a desk made from what looked like crystallized starlight, his back to them as he watched a massive cargo ship disappear into hyperspace. "The Vortanian freighter heading to the outer rim," he said without turning round. 17,000 tons of processed minerals from my operations in the Kebler system, the same system where the Colonial Council thinks humans aren't qualified to work. He turned. And Minji found herself looking at a man who couldn't have been much older than her. His eyes held the kind of weariness that came from carrying enormous responsibility. But there was something else there too, a sharp intelligence that seemed to catalogue everything it saw. "I'm Jinwoo Kim," he said simply, "and I have a proposition for you." Minji had heard the name whispered in cantinas and trading posts throughout the galaxy. Kim Industries controlled mining operations on dozens of worlds, employed thousands of beings, and had connections that reached into the highest levels of galactic government. But the man sitting across from her looked more like a tired engineer than a corporate titan. "You want me to work for you," she said. "It wasn't a question. I want you to manage one of my most challenging operations, Zirion 7, in the Badlands sector. It's a world rich in rare minerals, but previous managers have struggled with the local conditions." Jinwoo activated a holographic display that showed a planet wreathed in purple storms. Lightning crackled between massive floating rock formations, and the surface was scarred with canyons that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The planet's electromagnetic field interferes with most technology. He continued, "The atmosphere is toxic to 60% of known species, and the indigenous crystal formations emit radiation that drives most aliens insane within weeks. And you think a human can handle it? I think humans have something that expensive genetic modifications can't provide: adaptability. The ability to find solutions that no one else has thought of." Minji studied the swirling purple world in the hologram. What happened to the previous managers? The Zephyrian crystalline being tried to commune with the planet's mineral consciousness. He's currently in a psychiatric facility, convinced he's become one with the mountain ranges. The Altarian used advanced technological solutions that the planet's electromagnetic field destroyed within hours. The vegan bioengineer attempted to modify the atmosphere and triggered a global storm system that's still raging. And you think I can succeed where they failed? Jinwoo leaned back in his chair. "I think you have something they don't: humility. The willingness to admit when you don't know something and find another way." Before Minji could respond, the office door chimed, and another human entered. This one was younger, with the lean build of someone who'd grown up in low gravity. His face was etched with worry lines. "Minji." The newcomer's voice was filled with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" "Hyan." Minji stood, surprised to see her old academy friend. "I thought you were working the Jupiter freight runs." "I was, until Mr. Kim offered me a better position." Hyun's eyes darted between Minji and Jinwoo. "But Minji, you can't be thinking of taking the Zirion job. That place is a death trap." "I've seen the casualty reports. The position comes with full hazard compensation," Jinwoo said calmly. "Complete medical coverage and a success bonus that would set you up for life." Hyun grabbed Minji's arm. "It's also killed or driven insane everyone who's tried to tame it. And there are rumors about Mr. Kim, about why he's so interested in human employees, about what he's really trying to prove out there." Minji looked between her concerned friend and the mysterious businessman who was offering her a chance to prove herself. Through the office windows, she could see ships heading out into the galaxy, carrying crews to adventures among the stars. "I'll take the job," she said. The transport ship Constellation shuddered as it broke through Zirion 7's chaotic atmosphere. Purple lightning crackled against the hull, and Minji gripped her seat as the entire vessel bucked like an angry beast. Through the viewport, she watched floating mountains drift through clouds of glowing gas, their surfaces crackling with energy that made her skin tingle even through the ship's shielding. "First time seeing the Badlands?" asked Captain Daeho, the grizzled pilot who'd been running supplies to Zirion 7 for 3 years. His weathered hands danced across controls that sparked and flickered with each electromagnetic pulse from the planet below. First time seeing anything like this, Minji admitted. Watching a chunk of rock the size of a city block float past their starboard window, strange creatures that looked like living crystals clung to its surface, their bodies pulsing with the same purple energy that filled the sky. The locals call those things dream singers, Deho said, following her gaze. They say the crystals can read your thoughts if you get too close. Most of the previous managers ended up staring at them for hours, completely lost in whatever visions they were seeing. The mining facility came into view as they descended through the lower atmosphere. It was a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers, built into the side of a massive canyon. Extraction equipment reached deep into the planet's crust, pulling up minerals that glowed within a fire. But even from a distance, Minji could see that something was wrong. Half the machinery stood idle, and several of the processing plants were dark. Looks like they're running at about 30% capacity, she murmured. That's better than last month, Deho replied grimly. The alien crew's been having difficulties with human management. They landed on a platform that jutted out over the canyon's edge. As soon as the ship's ramp lowered, Minji was hit by a wave of sensation that made her stagger. The air tasted of copper and ozone, and every breath seemed to make her thoughts sharper, more focused. The planet's electromagnetic field hummed through her bones like a living thing. Waiting for her at the bottom of the ramp was the strangest collection of beings she'd ever seen. The facility's alien workforce represented at least a dozen different species, each adapted to harsh environments in their own way. There were the Kroger, massive, rock-like creatures whose bodies were covered in natural armor, the insectoid. Vex clicked and chittered as they scuttled on multiple legs, and floating above them all were the ethereals, beings made of pure energy who existed in specially designed containment suits. "So you're the new human manager," said the largest Kroger, his voice like grinding stone. "I am Thok, shift supervisor. How long do you think you'll last?" The question was asked with such casual certainty that Minji almost laughed. "Long enough to figure out why your production numbers are so low." The Vex workers clicked among themselves in their own language. But Minji caught enough of the translation to understand they were placing bets on how quickly she'd break down. One of the ethereals pulsed brighter, and its synthetic voice echoed from its containment suit. Previous managers lasted an average of 4.7 standard days before requesting emergency evacuation, and not like the previous managers, Minji said, pulling on her environmental suit. The fabric immediately began adapting to the planet's unique conditions, filtering the toxic atmosphere and adjusting to the electromagnetic interference. Over the next several hours, Minji toured the facility with growing amazement. The mining operation was incredibly sophisticated, with extraction equipment that could reach depths of over 50 kilometers. The processing plants were marvels of engineering, capable of refining the planet's exotic minerals into materials worth thousands of credits per gram. But everything was running at a fraction of its potential. The quantum extractors keep failing, Doc explained as they walked past a row of massive drilling machines. The electromagnetic storms interfere with their quantum coherence fields, so you shut them down. Previous managers demanded we continue operations regardless. 3 extractors were completely destroyed when their containment fields collapsed. Minji knelt beside one of the inactive machines, studying its design. It was built like every other piece of galactic technology, elegant, efficient, and completely dependent on stable quantum fields. But Sirian 7 was anything but stable. "What if we're approaching this wrong?" she said, more to herself than to the aliens watching her. "Meaning?" asked one of the Vex workers, its compound eyes glittering with what might have been curiosity, everyone's. trying to impose galactic standard technology on a planet that clearly doesn't follow galactic standard physics. Minji stood, brushing purple dust from her hands. What if instead of fighting the electromagnetic interference, we used it? The aliens exchanged glances. Voc's rocky features shifted into what might have been a frown. Impossible. The interference. Patterns are chaotic, unpredictable. Are they? Minji pulled out a portable scanner and began taking readings. Look at this. The patterns aren't random. They're following the planet's magnetic field lines, and those field lines are connected to the crystal formations. She pointed to the floating mountains visible through the facility's transparent walls. The Dream Singers aren't just pretty decorations. They're part of a planet-wide network. Like living circuit boards, the electromagnetic pulses are how they communicate with each other, the ethereal being pulsed brighter. You suggest we somehow interface with the planetary consciousness. I suggest we stop fighting it and start working with it. Minji's mind was racing now, ideas forming faster than she could speak them. Traditional mining uses brute force. Drill down and extract what you need. But what if we could ask the planet to give us what we want? The next week was a blur of experimentation and discovery. Minji worked 18-hour days, sleeping only when exhaustion forced her to. She studied the planet's electromagnetic patterns, learned to read the pulse language of the crystal creatures, and slowly began to understand how Zirion 7's unique ecosystem functioned. The breakthrough came when she realized that the planet's mineral deposits weren't randomly distributed. They followed the same patterns as the electromagnetic field lines, growing along pathways that connected the floating crystal formations, instead of drilling blindly into the planet's crust. They could follow these natural highways directly to the richest deposits. It's like the planet is trying to tell us where to look, she explained to the assembled crew. We just need to learn how to listen. The results were immediate and dramatic. Production numbers that had been stuck at 30% suddenly jumped to 60%, then 80%, then beyond anything the facility had ever achieved. The alien workers watched in amazement as their human manager accomplished in days what their previous supervisors had failed to do in months. But more importantly, they began to see something they hadn't expected. That maybe humans weren't as weak as they'd thought. Maybe there was something to be said for the strange adaptability that let humans thrive in conditions that would destroy other species. How did you know? Doc asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the floating mountains in shades of gold and purple. Minji smiled, feeling the planet's electromagnetic field pulse through her bones like a heartbeat. I didn't know. I just stopped trying to be smarter than the planet and started trying to understand it instead. High above them, the Dream Singers pulsed with what almost looked like approval. The sleek black starship Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace like a predator emerging from shadow. Its hull was polished to mirror perfection, reflecting the purple lightning that constantly danced round Zirion 7. On the bridge, Jinwoo stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the planet that had defeated so many before Minji arrived. Sir, we're receiving docking clearance from the mining facility, reported Song, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Production reports show a 400% increase in output over the past month. Jinwoo allowed himself a small smile, and the crew morale reports. The alien workers have requested that Manager Park be given permanent status. They've also submitted a formal apology to Kim Industries for their previous resistance to human leadership. The Phoenix descended through the electromagnetic storms with ease, its advanced shielding systems barely flickering against the planet's chaotic energy fields. Unlike the transport ships that usually serviced the facility, Jinwoo's personal vessel was built for the most dangerous corners of the galaxy. Its quantum engines could punch through gravity wells that would trap other ships. and its hull was forged from metals found only in the cores of dying stars. As they approached the mining facility, Jinwoo could see the changes immediately. Where before only a third of the extraction equipment had been operational, now the entire complex hummed with activity. New structures had been built, elegant towers that seemed to grow from the canyon walls like living things, their surfaces pulsing with the same purple energy that filled the planet's atmosphere. Fascinating, he murmured. She's not just working with the planet's systems, she's integrated them into the facility itself. The docking bay was filled with alien workers preparing shipments of processed minerals. Kroger. Laborers moved containers. That would have required heavy machinery at other facilities. Well-vexed technicians scuttled over equipment that sparkled with crystalline modifications. The ethereals floated in perfect formation, their energy patterns synchronized with the planet's electromagnetic field. But it was the sight of Minji herself that made Jinwoo pause. She stood in the center of the activity, her environmental suit modified with crystal components that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her hair had taken on a subtle purple tint from prolonged exposure to the planet's energy, and her eyes held a depth that spoke of someone who had learned to see beyond the surface of things. "Mr. Kim," she said, approaching with a confidence that hadn't been there during their first meeting. "Welcome to Zirion 7. The reports don't do justice to what you've accomplished here," Jinwoo replied, gesturing to the bustling facility around them. "A 400% increase in production, 0 equipment failures in 3 weeks, and crew efficiency ratings that are off the charts," Minji shrugged. As if revolutionizing an entire mining operation was no big deal. The aliens here are incredibly skilled. They just needed someone who was willing to listen to the planet instead of trying to dominate it. Is that what you think this was about? Listening? Something in Jinwoo's tone made Minji look at him more closely. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering immediately, Jinwoo pulled out a small device that projected a 3-dimensional star map. Dozens of systems were highlighted in blue, each one marking a location where Kim Industries had operations. "Kepler Station, where the Colonial Council rejected you," he said, pointing to one system. "My mining operation that is managed by a human named Jun-Ho. 6 months ago, he solved a labor dispute that had been going on for years by organizing the first multi-species sports league in that sector." He pointed to another system, the agricultural colonies in the Vega system, managed by human supervisor Isil. She increased crop yields by 30% by teaching alien farmers earth techniques that hadn't been used in this galaxy before. More systems lit up as he spoke. The shipping hub at Proxima Station, where human logistics coordinator Sumi created the most efficient cargo routing system in known space. The terraforming project on New Sol, where human engineer Minho figured out how to make 3 different alien ecosystems coexist on the same world. Minji stared at the map, understanding dawning in her eyes. They're all human, every single one. And every single one was initially rejected by the Colonial Council for the same reasons you were. Inferior genetics, limited adaptability, primitive origins. Jinwoo's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "But they've all achieved things that the Council's genetically superior candidates couldn't dream of." "You've been testing us," Minji said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. "I've been proving a theory. The galactic community has become obsessed with genetic perfection, with technological solutions to every problem. But they've forgotten something important. Sometimes the best solutions come from beings who aren't perfect, who have to find creative ways to survive." Jinwoo walked to the facility's main observation window, where the floating crystal mountains were visible in the distance. Dream singers pulsed among the formations, their bodies glowing with the same energy that now powered the mining operation. Humans are the only species I've encountered that instinctively looks for symbiotic relationships instead of dominance," he continued. "When faced with a problem, most aliens either try to overpower it with superior technology or modify themselves to match the environment. Humans adapt the environment to work with them, and themselves to work with the environment. So this was all an experiment," Minji said. "The job offer, the impossible assignment, bringing me to a planet that drives most aliens insane. It was an opportunity for you and for humanity." Jinwoo turned back to face her. "The Colonial Council thinks humans are inferior because you come from a single world, because your genetics haven't been modified for thousands of years. But I think that's exactly what makes you superior. You still remember how to adapt, how to find solutions that no one else has thought of." Minji was quiet for a long moment, watching the alien workers who had gone from sabotaging operations to treating her with genuine respect. "What happens now? Now we expand. I want to offer management positions to humans throughout the galaxy, not just the ones who pass the Colonial Council's arbitrary standards, but the ones they reject, the ones who have to fight for everything they achieve. And you think the Council will just accept that?" Jinwoo's smile was sharp as a blade. "I think the Council will have to accept it when every single human-managed operation outperforms their genetically perfect alternatives. Success has a way of changing minds, even closed ones." As if summoned by their conversation, Vok approached with a data pad showing the latest production figures. The massive Kroger's rocky features had shifted into what Minji had learned was his version of her. "Smile, Manager Park. The Ethereals have requested permission to recommend you for the Galactic Efficiency Award," he said. "They say your methods should be taught at the Colonial Academy." Minji looked at Jinwoo, then back at the thriving facility round them. "I think we're going to need a bigger operation." The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Colonial Council had never been so crowded. Representatives from hundreds of star systems packed the floating observation galleries, while news drones from every major media network in the galaxy buzzed through the air like mechanical insects. Chambers' holographic displays showed real-time footage from dozens of failing colonial projects, withered crops on agricultural worlds, abandoned mining operations, and terraforming projects that had ground to a halt. But the centerpiece of every display was Zirion 7, now glowing like a purple jewel in space. The once chaotic planet had become a model of efficiency, its mining operations producing more rare minerals in a single month than most facilities managed in a year. Round it, a small fleet of ships waited in orbit, not the usual corporate vessels, but something new, ships crewed entirely by humans, carrying supplies and personnel to other challenging worlds throughout the galaxy. The High Arbiter's tentacles writhed with barely contained anxiety as it addressed the assembly. "Honored delegates, we face an unprecedented crisis. 17 colonial projects have failed in the past 6 months. Agricultural yields are down 40% across 12 systems. Our most experienced managers are requesting transfers away from frontier assignments." A ripple of concerned murmurs passed through the alien assembly. The Zephyrian representative's crystalline features caught the chamber's light as it leaned forward. "What does the Council propose?" Instead of answering, the High Arbiter activated the chamber's main display. The image that appeared made the entire assembly fall silent. It showed Minji standing on a platform overlooking Zirion 7's main mining complex, her environmental suit gleaming with integrated crystal technology. Behind her, alien workers of a dozen different species worked in perfect harmony, their movements synchronized with the planet's electromagnetic pulses. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications," the High Arbiter said, its voice carrying a note of something that might have been humility. I present the manager of our most successful colonial operation in recorded history. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss, and Menji walked in flanked by Jinwoo and a small group of human advisors. She looked different than she had 6 months ago, more confident, more assured, but also somehow more grounded. The purple tint in her hair had deepened, and her eyes held the calm focus of someone who had learned to see the universe from an entirely new perspective. But it was the reaction of the alien delegates that truly showed how much had changed. Where before they had looked at humans with dismissive contempt, now there was something else in their expressions: curiosity, respect, and perhaps even a touch of fear. "Manager Park," the High Arbiter said, its tentacles culling in what passed for a formal bow among its species. "We have studied your methods on Zirion 7 with great interest. Your success has been remarkable. Thank you," Minji replied simply. "Though I should point out that the success belongs to everyone who worked to make it happen. Humans, Kruger, Vex, Ethereals, we all contributed." The Altarian representative's red eyes flashed brighter. "Your modesty is noted, but the data speaks for itself. Production increased by 400%. Worker satisfaction ratings reached levels we have never recorded, and most impressively, you achieved this on a world that had defeated our most qualified managers. Sometimes being qualified isn't the same as being right for the job," Minji said, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "Zirion 7 didn't need someone with perfect genetics or advanced technology. It needed someone willing to listen." The High Arbiter's tentacles writhed more rapidly. "Which brings us to our request. We have situations throughout the galaxy that require your particular talents. Colonial projects that are failing despite our best efforts. Worlds that seem to resist every attempt at development. A new holographic display activated, showing a dozen different worlds. There was Titan's Edge, where massive storms had destroyed 3 successive agricultural colonies. The Crystal Caverns of Androsia, where mining operations had triggered geological instabilities that threatened to tear the planet apart. The floating cities of Nimbus 7, where atmospheric processes had created toxic cloud formations that were slowly poisoning the entire world. Each of these projects represents billions of credits in investment, the Zephyrian delegate said. More importantly, they represent the future homes of millions of beings throughout the galaxy. Without successful colonization, population pressure will soon reach critical levels on our core worlds. Minji studied the displays, her mind already working through the challenges each world presented. "And you want me to fix them?" "We want you to lead a new colonial initiative," the High Arbiter corrected, "with full authority to implement whatever methods you deem necessary, and limited resources, complete personnel discretion, and a mandate that supersedes local governmental interference." The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Minji looked at Jinwoo, who nodded almost imperceptibly. They had discussed this possibility during the flight to the council chambers, but hearing it stated so formally made it real. "I have conditions," Minji said. The alien delegates leaned forward, their various sensory organs focusing on her intently. "First, 1, choose my own teams, human managers, human supervisors, human technical staff. The Colonial Council has spent centuries selecting people based on genetic profiles and technological compatibility. I want to try a different approach." The Altarian representative's mechanical voice carried a note of concern. "You would staff entire colonial operations with beings from a single world. I would staff them with beings who understand that adaptation is more important than perfection," Minji replied. "Second condition, we operate as an independent entity, not as Colonial Council contractors, but as equal partners. Kim Industries has offered to provide funding and infrastructure support." Jinwoo stepped forward, his presence commanding even. Among the alien assembly, the success of human managers throughout my operation speaks for itself. We're prepared to establish the first human-led colonization company in galactic history. With Minji as Chief Operations Director, the Chamber erupted in startled conversations as delegates from hundreds of worlds discussed the implications. A human-led company would have been unthinkable just months ago. Now, faced with mounting colonial failures, it seemed like their only hope. The High Arbiter raised several tentacles for silence. The Council must deliberate on such a significant decision. The implications for galactic colonial policy are enormous. While you deliberate, Minji said, people are suffering on failed colonies. Crops are dying. Mining operations are shutting down. Terraforming projects are poisoning entire worlds. She gestured to the displays still showing the struggling colonial sites. How many more projects will fail while you debate whether humans are qualified to help? The question hit the assembly like a physical blow. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. Too many. 3 hours later, the vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a human would lead a major colonial initiative, backed by resources that could reshape entire star systems. As Minji and Jinwoo walked from the chamber, followed by news drones and cheering crowds of beings from across the galaxy, she couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, she had been rejected as genetically inferior, unsuitable for colonial work. Now, she was about to become the most powerful colonial administrator in known space. Ready to change the galaxy? Jinwoo asked. Minji looked up at the stars visible through the station's transparent dome, where human crewed ships were already heading toward their first assignments, ready to prove that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places behind them. The Colonial Council was already drafting new policies that would give human managers preference for the most challenging assignments. The age of genetic supremacy was ending, replaced by something far more powerful: the human ability to adapt, survive, and thrive in any environment the universe could create. The ND.